Welcome back to Uprising. I'm Sonali Kolhatkar. Workers in cities all over the nation are plagued by low wages and job insecurity, and they've been fighting back for higher wages and the right to a union. It should surprise us, however, that even in the nation's capital, and even among those workers who directly serve elected officials and policymakers, wages are so low that the spark of organizing has been lit. 600 workers employed by federal contractors who make and serve food for U.S. senators and do other jobs walked off their jobs last week. They were joined by more than 30 Senate employees, including members of the Senate Progressive Caucus. Private companies now dominate the service landscape in Washington, D.C. for government officials and aides. A cashier named Pamela told the Campaign for America's Future that she makes only $12 an hour and is not allowed to work full-time. More than 10 years ago, when she worked at the Senate, she made $48,000 a year. The shocking difference symbolizes the impact of privatization in D.C., which has strived to maximize profits at the expense of workers' lives. Joining me now is Paco Fabian. He's a spokesperson for Good Jobs Nation, a project of the Labor Federation Change to Win. Welcome to Uprising, Paco.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Now, who exactly walked out last week? Can you explain which workers participated, what industry they're in, who they serve, who they work for, etc.?
So the Good Jobs Nation campaign is a campaign of low-wage federal contract workers. These are workers who work in federal buildings all over the Washington, D.C. area. They work at places like Union Station, like the Ronald Reagan Federal Building, as well as some of the workers from the Capitol, and as you so mentioned, workers from the U.S. Senate. So these are workers that are touched by the way the federal government does business in the private sector.
And last week's walkout, I understand, was not the first time that workers who are employed by federal contractors in D.C. Walked out. I understand it was the first time, I think, that food service workers and janitors joined in. Are these walkouts growing?
So this was the 12th strike that workers have been participating in, and it was the first time that we had Senate workers participate. These are workers that clean and serve food inside the Senate office buildings. Previously, we've had, like I mentioned, workers from the Capitol Visitor Center, which is the basement of the U.S. Capitol building, and workers in other federal buildings across Washington, D.C. go on strike. And it's really symbolic of the role that the federal government plays in the growing income inequality that we're seeing in our country.